It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. What's going on, guys? Now, I was not able to watch the Danny Garcia versus Samuel Vargas fight live. I was in Miami, just hanging out with friends, so I wasn't able to be near a TV screen. But I did follow it. I did just watch the fight, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the Vargas Garcia fight because it kind of was what I thought it would be, but from what I saw, Danny Garcia looked like he was trying to shake off the cobwebs. I thought he looked exceptionally stronger than I've seen in more of his recent fights. His punches had a lot of snap to him. In some of those middle rounds, he began to work on his jab, and I saw that he wasn't really throwing as many punches because he was, trying to work on his jab, and not just his jab, but also his distance and timing. Kind of making sure that those things are in order before he fights Keith Thurman. And he hasn't fought since January, so you would expect for him to get his rounds, and as he did. So, he did what he had to do against Samuel Vargas, and I think, he got the right amount of rounds and did what he had to do. So with that being said, it's set up, as you guys saw in the post-fight between Keith Thurman, who was ringside calling the fight, and Danny. They had a lot of heated words were exchanged. Keith Thurman said he ain't no cherry. Danny Garcia said, yes, he is, because I'm picking you next, so you are a cherry. And there was a lot of, it was really entertaining to watch. Good for boxing. Hopefully the fight can be as good as the post-fight, exchange between the two fighters. But this fight, honestly, I haven't, because there's so much going on in boxing right now. I've been going to the gyms. I've been talking to like Shannon Briggs and Jarrell Miller and the Heavyweight Factory. I've been to the Fifth Street Gym. We have Kovalev Ward this week, so I've been very focused on that. We got Lomachenko and Walters on the horizon. And we got the December 10th fight coming out with Terrence Crawford and John Molina. So I haven't really thought that far ahead to March. But when I do sit down and I think about this Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman fight, it's very, very important. It will change the landscape of the welterweight division. It'll set the tone for this weight class moving forward. And right now, as it stands for not just Danny Garcia, but I would say even more for Keith and Danny, this is a legacy fight. This is a fight where, if you're Keith Thurman, the hype has definitely, died down. It's been a while since he really stopped anybody, emphatically. In his last fight with Sean Porter, a lot of people, myself included, thought he lost that fight. So he's looking for a win over somebody. A legitimate, win where he definitely, decisively wins and has an impressive performance. He hasn't had one of those yet, or a top caliber opponent. So he's looking for that right here against Danny Garcia. And for Garcia, years ago when he was beating the likes of Amir Khan, Lucas Matisse, Kendall Holt, you guys know the resume. When he was beating those guys, the hype on him was at an all-time high. And then you had the Herrera fight, and then you had the Rod Salka cherry pick, and him winning what was deemed in the eyes of many as a good decision against Lamont Peterson. Danny has been a guy where people have got sick of him, and when people talk about one of the reasons boxing isn't as popular anymore, they often point to Danny Garcia. So he is looking to re-legitimize himself in the eyes of many boxing fans. So what this fight for me is going to do is it's really going to start to begin to weed out who is who at welterweight. Now, I believe Kell Brook is truly the best welterweight in the world, but this is a fight to where whether you're Thurman or whether you're Garcia, you could put yourself in the line and make some big money and to put yourself in an even bigger legacy fight. So starting off with this fight, just to give you my quick little, stylistic breakdown of this fight, we'll start with Keith Thurman. Keith is a guy that is very, very intelligent guy to begin with, in and out the ring. Like I said when he fought Sean Porter, I feel like he does preach knockouts, but he's better when he fights off of his back foot and commits to his jab. When he's doing that and then he's setting up, then he's a lot harder to beat. But when he tries to wing shots, kind of like he did at times in the Sean Porter fight, and telegraphs a lot of his punches, then he becomes much easier to beat. And if he falls into that kind of pattern where he himself begins to load up on shots and doesn't stick to his boxing, I think DSG could land a really, really hard flush right hand or left hook or right hook. It doesn't matter. DSG will find a way to land it because he's a very accurate puncher, and he's a very accurate puncher because he's able to move his head in different places and throw from different angles. So that's what makes DSG so good as a counter puncher. So Keith, for him, it's going to be about just boxing and committing to his jab. And ultimately, you know, when DSG does throw his straight right, he likes to drop his left. I noticed that he dropped his left just a little bit. It's not very low, but it's low enough to where Keith has the speed to just come with the right over the top and hit him with something. Hit him with that one-time power. So Keith has to box Danny Garcia. I think to beat him, he's going to have to outbox him. He does not want to get into a five-power DSG because I feel like that would be stupid on his part due to the fact that I believe he's the more skilled fighter. And on top of that, he has a better jab. He's got better foot speed. So it's for his own best interest to not get into a firefight or not move around the ring against Danny Garcia. Now, on other side for Danny Garcia, you know, when we talk about a guy in Keith Thurman that he's fighting now, I don't think DSG's ever seen a guy who has not just the power, but the level of foot speed Keith has, both power and foot speed together. Because he fought Matisse. Matisse was a harder puncher than Keith, but Matisse doesn't really have that foot speed that Keith has. So it's going to be interesting for DSG because a lot of people say, well, DSG is flat-footed. I even say that myself. And, you know, for him, I think it's going to be about cutting off the ring. And, you know, I saw him rounds 5 and 6. If you go watch rounds 5 and 6 in the Vargas fight, he wasn't throwing too many punches and he was really just loading up a lot of shots, but he was really just trying to work on cutting off the ring. Because when you haven't been in the ring for that long, you know, you want to get your rounds in, and he was working on cutting off the ring against Vargas. So I think that's what's going to be the key for him against Thurman is cutting off the ring. If he can cut off the ring, it's pretty much his fight. So with that being said, Keith is going to try to make his claim early. He'll try to make DSG respect him early. I expect Keith to throw some real like 3-4 punch combinations, like lightning fast 4-punch combinations. DSG is good at, you know, parrying shots, making sure that he doesn't get hit. And even if he does get hit, he does have a good chin. So for DSG, it's all about looking for those openings, and he does a good job of moving his head in different positions so he can throw from different angles. So the key for DSG is to do what he's always done his whole career. Be patient, move your head, and, you know, especially now this fight, cut off the ring. So I'll go on record. I'll go on record right now to give my preliminary prediction. I think DSG, as much as I don't like the guy, I think he's going to win the fight for the simple fact that while Keith is a good fighter, I just think that mental discipline has always been a problem for Keith. He's not mentally weak, but mental discipline is a problem for him. He doesn't stick to his boxing. He gets caught body shots a lot. And it's not like Keith is the hardest guy in the world to hit. So if he does get, you know, a little aggressive against DSG is accurate. DSG knows how to time people. I think DSG will catch him on something. And I don't know if he's gonna stop him, but I think DSG will land enough hard shots in the fight for him to either get a decision or be put in a position to finish Keith Thurman. So I'm picking DSG. I think because with the championship experience, him still being young, he's gonna have a full week camp. And you know, for the first time in a while, he'll be motivated to fight someone. So I think I'm favoring him over Keith at the moment. So with that being said, it's gonna be a great fight. And this fight right here, it's gonna, like I said earlier, it's gonna set the tone for the welterweight division, a division where people are clamoring for big matchups. It has big names. And, you know, let's just look at the landscape of the welterweight division right now. So Thurman, who's a WBA champion. We have Garcia, who's the WBC champion. So the winner of this fight will be a unified champion. And that'll put them in line for some big fights against either Kell Brook or Manny Pacquiao, because those are the two guys who hold the other titles right now. Kell Brook holds the IBF. Manny Pacquiao just picked up the WBO with his recent win over Jesse Vargas. So I'm going to go to the rankings. I'm going to screen share with you guys. Screen share, internal display, share. All right, so we're here. So these are the WBA rankings. Oh, wait, hold on. Not WBA. WBO rankings, actually. So look at the WBO rankings. These aren't updated, but this is pretty much, you know, basically gives us a good idea of who's where. So Manny Pacquiao, as you guys can see right here, he picked up the WBO title recently with Jesse Vargas, so that'll put him way at the top. And then you have the most notable names we see immediately are Timothy Bradley and Errol Spence Jr. Now, I want to see Timothy Bradley versus Manny Pacquiao for us. We're gonna rule that one out just because we've already seen this many times. So after Bradley, Pacquiao's most viable option would be Spence. And Spence is fighting Kell Brook because he's Kell Brook's mandatory. And Kell Brook, like I did the video the other day, said that and he wants to make the title defense against Errol Spence Jr. And I think that for me in that fight, I've said that Errol Spence would beat Keith Thurman, but in this fight right here, I'm picking Kell Brook over Errol Spence just because I think for Errol, he's never really ever seen anybody that has the level of hand speed, punching power, brings to the table. And not just that, he's very hittable. Very hittable. If you go back and watch the Alejandro Barrera fight, he was getting hit with flush 2 or 3 punch counters. And in a fight against a guy like Kell Brook in his backyard, beating him. But it should be a good fight. Hopefully happens. Now, if Errol somehow does pull off the upset, which would be an upset in my eyes, if he does pull off the upset, then that puts him squarely in line for a fight with Manny Pacquiao. And then the onus will be on Pacquiao to make the fight. So Errol's in a great position. Errol also has the options with PBC. So that's the Errol Spence side of things. Now we have the Kell Brook side of things. Kell Brook, as you guys can see, is not ranked anywhere in the top 15 of these WBO rankings. And we see these guys who I'm not even familiar with in the top 10, like this guy named Ali Funeka. I don't know who he is. Taras Shella. I don't even know how to say this guy's name. He's number 9. So rankings are weird. Kell Brook probably won't get a shot at Manny Pacquiao unless Bob Arum and Eddie Hearn come to some sort of agreement. But aside from that, let's go to the WBC rankings. So we have Danny Garcia, who's the current champion right now. Floyd Mayweather is the emeritus champion. If you guys don't know what that is, the emeritus champion basically means that if Floyd were to come out of retirement, he's automatically the WBC champion. But for the time being, Danny is the champion. So should he beat Keith, here you go. You look at his mandatories, and his mandatories Amir Khan, and that's a fight that I've said many times. I think that's a fight I want to see. I want to see Amir Khan get his chance to redeem himself. If he were to beat, if Danny beats Keith Thurman and then fights Amir Khan, Danny's going to be a huge favorite. So that presents an interesting chance for Khan to put himself back on the map and become world champion at 147, which I would really like to see him get a chance to do because I'm an Amir Khan fan, and I think it'd be a good fight because the first one was really good. Outside of that, there's Berto at number 2. That fight was rumored. Porter, number 4. So, there's good fights for DSG and or Thurman there. And then, or you can fight the emeritus champion, Floyd Mayweather. We just saw a picture the other night of Danny and Floyd partying at some sort of after party after his Vargas. So, we just don't know. There's a lot of options there. And then when you go to these WBA rankings, right, which is the current title that Keith Thurman has, these names here aren't as attractive, but you see like David Avanesian. That fight's probably, gonna happen. It'll probably be mandatory type of fight. Keith will take in his backyard. Then you have this guy here where I don't know who this guy is, but he's number 2. Jose Benavidez, don't really want to see it. Laurent Peterson, he's still alive. That's a fight that can be made. So there's a lot of matchups to be made in the welterweight division. Personally speaking, the fights I'd like to see, I don't think Manny Pacquiao and or Floyd Mayweather should fight any of these young guys. To be honest, I'm just so sick of the Pacquiao-Mayweather era. I'll watch the fight, but I really ain't trying to watch Mayweather-Pacquiao fight anymore. I feel like boxing needs to move forward. And once these guys retire, we can really start to do that. So I'd like to see them retire. Aside from that, Kell Brook, Errol Spence to me is like the fight. Because a lot of people think Errol Spence is that guy at 147. I personally still think he's the best body puncher at 147, but I just don't think that he has the defensive ability and or experience in the ring to deal with a fighter like Kell Brook. And if he was to go on the road and he was to beat Kell Brook, then to me, in my opinion, that would make him probably the top guy at 147. Just because to me, I look at Kell Brook as the top guy. He beat the top guy. So why wouldn't I put Errol at number 1? But there's that fight. There's Amir Khan, Danny Garcia, Amir Khan, Kell Brook, Amir Khan, Keith Thurman, which is a fight I would love to see, which is, I didn't talk about that earlier, but if Keith beats Danny, then that makes Amir Khan Keith's mandatory. And I know a lot of people thought that Amir Khan was stylistically a tough fight for Keith. So that could be a good one as well. But yeah, man, it looks like we're finally about to get to the point with these welterweights to where we finally begin to weed out who's who. And I'm excited about it because the welterweight division is like one of the most talked about divisions in boxing, but it's hilarious because if you go on Ring Magazine, as I'm going to go right here, I believe unless they put Manny Pacquiao back on the pound for pound list, it's probably anybody on the pound for pound list. And the only guy you could really make as a case for pound just lost, and that's Kell Brook. So, Kell Brook or Manny Pacquiao, that's really it. Everybody else is kind of still trying to establish himself as that. So, you have all that. And then another thing I wanted to talk about was this as well, because we talked about, Terrence Crawford, as you guys can see right here, is number 5 pound for pound. I think he's one of the most talented fighters in boxing. Terrence Crawford's going to be at 147 in the very, very near future. And obviously he has to still unify at 140, and he made it very clear that he wants to pick up the remaining titles in the division that Troyanovsky holds, and that I believe, I can't remember the other one, Troyanovsky, and no, it's not Broner. But anyway, he wanted to unify titles at 140, and eventually at some point he's been moved to 147. So once Terrence Crawford gets into the mix, then we have a whole nother list of possibilities, and we can finally get to see Danny Garcia versus Terrence Crawford. You guys have been seeing on a lot of these YouTube channels that, Danny and Crawford or Angel Garcia has been going off on Crawford about basically, the whole blue and gold thing and how Danny sent him home in the amateurs and all that stuff. So once Terrence Crawford gets into the division, it's going to be, probably the most stacked division in boxing, which is saying something because, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how the other weight classes will look. But right now, let's say if he was to jump up into the weight class tomorrow, as far as depth goes, having – because, the 5-6 fighters who are really good, you would probably say there's – I don't know. That division is just really good. I don't want to compare it to other weight classes. But 115 pounds is the best division in boxing. In the 115-pound division, there's there's Estrada, there's Roman, there's Noye. Those are 3 A-level fighters. And then you have Quadras, who's high B+. So that division to me is hands down the most stacked. But welterweight with a Terrence Crawford in the mix does definitely give that any division in boxing a run for its money as far as who's the most talented. So this fight right here, and I'm fully, whether it's as media or as a fan, I'm gonna be in Brooklyn for this fight because I think that's where they said it's gonna be at. But if it hasn't finalized yet, then wherever it's at, I'm gonna be there. And it's gonna be a huge fight, man. I can't stress the importance of this fight. You have a guy in Garcia who once was beloved in the boxing world, now is hated on by many in the boxing world, trying to legitimize himself in a new weight class. You have Keith Thurman, who was looked at as the future of boxing. Still is in the eyes of many, but to some like myself, that hype has kind of dwindled a little bit with his performance against Collazo and those fights. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm very excited for this. I hope no funny business happens in the past because last year we had Porter and Thurman was delayed. It was supposed to happen last December, and we kind of had to wait for that one. So hopefully no funny business. The contracts get signed. The PBC does their job with promoting it the proper way, so that this fight can get its just due, and boxing can get pushed forward. Hopefully they stack the undercard. If I'm PBC, I'm stacking the undercard. I would put Sean Porter on this undercard if I could. Other welterweights, other top quality guys. But yeah, man, gonna be a great fight. March 4th, 2017. I will be there wherever it's at. You can have a guarantee from me right here, unless I'm no longer here. I will be at that fight. But let me know what you guys think about Danny Garcia's performance against Samuel Vargas, Keith Thurman versus Danny Garcia, and how that whole matchup. And not just that, with this being a big unification fight with Earl Spence, Kell Brook in the works potentially, now that Kell Brook has said he's staying 147. What are some of the matchups that you, the fans, want to see? Because I put mines out there. It's a very interesting time in the welterweight division. A lot of people think that Manny Pacquiao is still the #1 welterweight, which is fine because he went in there against Jesse Vargas, a guy who isn't a B-class fighter, but still a solid guy, and he made easy work of him. So at 37 to do that, it still proves that Manny Pacquiao is better than a lot of guys in the sport. And yeah, man, just leave your comments down below. Take the time to subscribe, and you can love me or you can hate me. But I'm just a kid from Dingus. So until next time, take care, guys.